Somewhere I have cassettes, hours and hours of me just making chit-chat with a very young Michael Connor.
But he doesn't talk like that anymore.
No, he doesn't. It was just we were 7, 8 years old.
Forrest Gump made $677 million, but Tom Hanks paid a price nobody saw. On the second day of shooting, the director said something that haunted him for years. Hanks was pushing too hard, and everything felt wrong. Then came the running scenes. Sick, blistered, and barely holding on, he kept going. The crew didn't know. The studio didn't know. Even the most iconic line came from a moment of pure exhaustion. At 69, Hanks is finally breaking his silence about what really happened behind the scenes. Tom Hanks was born on July 9, 1956, in Concord, California. But his early years didn't feel like a beginning. They felt more like pieces scattered across different places. By the time he was 4, his parents had divorced, and it wasn't quiet or friendly. They fought over custody and moved him around like luggage. From age 4 to 10, he had already lived in 7 different homes. Cities like Sacramento, Red Bluff, and Oakland became temporary stops. He was never in one school long enough to get settled. By 5th grade, he had changed schools 4 times. He never unpacked fully. He didn't know if he'd be there a month or a year. He once said it felt like being a visitor in his own life. That constant shifting made him learn how to read people fast, a skill he didn't know would matter later. At home, things weren't just unstable. They were falling apart. His father, Amos, was struggling badly with alcohol. They were so poor that for 18 months, they lived in a converted garage behind someone's house in Oakland. There was no kitchen, no running water, just a hot plate and an outdoor tap they used to drink, cook, and wash. Amos worked now and then as a cook, but his drinking often left them with no money at all. There were stretches when the lights were cut off. Tom remembers eating government cheese and powdered milk for what felt like forever. In 1966, when he was 10, he found his dad passed out inside their 1962 Rambler. The car got repossessed the very next morning. That kind of life taught him what it meant to not have anything and why work mattered more than talent. While everything around him kept breaking, there was one place where things stayed still: the movie theater. For 50 cents, he could sit through films for an entire weekend. Jimmy Stewart became more familiar to him than any neighbor. He watched It's a Wonderful Life and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance until he knew the lines by heart. At 8 years old, he started putting on plays in his backyard with his siblings. Cardboard boxes turned into saloons, and bed sheets became curtains. Their first play ran 47 minutes and cost 10 cents to watch. At school, he joined theater in 3rd grade. He didn't just remember lines, he became the characters. One time, in 1968, he forgot his lines during Our Town and just made up the rest on the spot. His teacher, Mrs. Rawlins, said right then she knew he was different. But home never stopped being a mess. When his mom remarried in 1970, everything got worse. Her new husband, Leo, was a truck driver, and he didn't believe in soft parenting. He was 6'3", weighed 240 pounds, and brought military-style rules into the house. Lights out at 9, no TV on weekdays, and punishments that scared Tom. In March 1972, Tom had enough. Leo smashed his box of movie clippings after catching him reading instead of cleaning. Tom was 15. He packed a bag and ran away. For 4 nights, he slept in a friend's car and lived off snacks from vending machines. He made $18 cleaning a garage. His mom found him on the 5th day and convinced Leo to ease up. But those 4 nights taught Tom something he'd never forget: what it really feels like to be alone, scared, and unsure if anyone would come for you. At Skyline High in Oakland, between 1972 and 1974, he finally found something solid. He wasn't great at school, his SAT scores were low, but The stage? That felt like home. He played in South Pacific and The Music Man, and at 17, he got a lead role that made people stop and look. For the first time, classmates clapped for him. He wasn't just the kid who moved around anymore. The drama teacher saw something raw in him. He said Tom could be loud and wild in ways that lit up the room. Years later, in 1985, Tom came back to give the graduation speech, and everyone remembered who he was. But 1974 was also the year everything almost broke again. That was when Amos, his father, left for good. No more letters, no more calls, just gone. Tom was 18, and suddenly the man of the house. He took a job at the Oakland Hilton as a bellhop, making $3.50 an hour. He carried luggage, delivered food, and once even served share. Between shifts, he took classes at Chabot College. He was so broke, he lived off French fries and used textbooks. He said later the only thing that was free was the effort. That same year, on that same campus, he met someone who would change everything. Her name was Susan Dillingham, though the world would later know her as Samantha Lewis. They were both in a college play of Mice and Men, and Tom played George. Late-night rehearsals turned into something more. They read scripts together and dreamed about acting. By 1975, they were serious enough to talk about marriage. Even though life was hard, they believed in each other. They married in 1978 and had 2 kids, Colin and Elizabeth, before splitting in 1987. In 1976, he got rejected from a local production of the Philadelphia Story. The reason? He was too tall. That stung more than he expected. With no big opportunities in California, he took a leap. In 1977, he moved to Cleveland, 1,200 miles away, after meeting Vincent Dowling, head of the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. His first job paid just $45 a week. He lived simply, sometimes in a van, and acted in Shakespeare plays night after night. From 1977 to 1980, he worked harder than he ever had. He built sets, hung lights, rehearsed non-stop. In 1978, he won a Cleveland Critics Circle Award for The Two Gentlemen of Verona. That gave him the push to try New York. In December 1979, he got his first movie role. It was a horror film called He Knows You're Alone. They paid him $800 for 2 weeks. They used real knives in some scenes. He was supposed to die in the script, but they liked him enough to rewrite it. The whole crew was just 12 people. The film barely made a mark, but it kept him in the game. Then came a year of pure rejection. After moving to LA in 1979, he auditioned for over 200 roles and got none. He had no agent, no hope. One day, he got an audition for Bosom Buddies, a sitcom where 2 guys dress as women to get an apartment. He didn't want the role. He thought it'd ruin him. So he tried to tank the audition on purpose. But the producers thought his nervousness was the perfect fit. He got the part. On set, he started improvising and saving the show with last-minute rewrites. Once, he and co-star Peter Scolari locked themselves in a room for 48 hours, rewriting scripts while living on coffee and pizza. He made up 40% of his lines during the pilot. Executives wanted him fired. One producer said no, he'll be a movie star in 2 years. He was right. But after the show got canceled in 1982, his agent dropped him. No warning. Just gone. Tom was $15,000 in debt, living on credit cards, eating ramen. He even called his dad to ask if he could work at the family restaurant. He was 3 days from eviction when Ron Howard called. He remembered seeing Tom on Happy Days. Howard was casting Splash. That call saved him. The underwater scenes in Splash almost broke him again. He wore 80 pounds of weights to stay underwater. Each take lasted 90 seconds with no oxygen. He had panic attacks, but never told anyone. He'd see a therapist secretly just to get through filming. Daryl Hannah, and he worked blind, no masks, just hand signals. One missed cue could have ended it all. Tom Hanks's journey through the 1980s was anything but smooth. In 1985, he starred in The Man with One Red Shoe, a strange spy comedy that only made $8.6 million while costing $16 million. The story, which had him play a confused violinist mistaken for a CIA agent, was supposed to be funny. But it flopped so hard that it became one of the biggest failures of his career. Critics didn't get it, audiences didn't care, and it almost cost him his rising momentum. But Tom didn't give up. In 1988, Big came along and turned everything around. It earned over $151 million and gave him his first Oscar nomination. That piano scene in the toy store? It wasn't done by dancers. He and Robert Loggia practiced it themselves for months using cardboard cutouts. And after the film became a hit, FAO Schwarz even sold replicas of the walking piano for $6,250 each. This movie didn't just save his career, it launched it into the sky. Just a year later, The Burbs confused everyone. It wasn't a total failure. It made $49.1 million on an $18 million budget. But no one knew what to make of it. Was it horror? Comedy? Critics didn't get it, and test audiences were puzzled. But somehow, it found a second life on home video and cable. People started to love it years later, and it became a cult favorite. That same year, Turner and Hooch nearly broke him, physically. The movie featured a massive 100-pound dog, and Tom had to wrestle, drag, and act terrified of it with no stunt doubles and no CGI. There were 4 dogs playing Hooch, and one scene where he had to shove the dog into a car took hours of filming. The original director, Henry Winkler, was fired over the dog scenes, and Roger Spottiswoode stepped in. In the end, the movie made $71.1 million, but Tom later said it left his body beaten to a pulp. Even after all this success, Tom didn't rush to create his own company. He didn't found Playtone Productions until January 23, 1998. That was long after Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, and A League of Their Own had made him a household name. The name Playtone came from a fake record label he created for That Thing You Do, which became the company's first real production. The failures of the 80s had taught him to wait and to be smart. In 1993, Tom went through a brutal transformation for Philadelphia. He dropped 40 pounds by eating just 800 calories a day. He was playing a man dying of AIDS, and the film was shot in order, so you could literally watch him deteriorate on screen. Denzel Washington said the diet was extreme. Tom said later that these kinds of roles may have caused his type 2 diabetes. He won his first Oscar for this role, but he paid a physical price. Then came Forrest Gump. But it almost didn't. On just the second day of filming, director Robert Zemeckis told Hanks, "You're pushing too hard." Tom thought he was about to be fired. Instead, Zemeckis gave him advice that changed everything. Stop acting. Just live in the character's clothes. That day saved the performance. And then came the running scenes. Hanks had the flu for 10 days straight, but he still ran 5 miles a day for filming. No breaks, no CGI. The leg braces left blisters, and the famous line, "I just felt like running," was something he came up with while sick. That film made $677 million, but behind the scenes, it was pure grit. When Apollo 13 was made in 1995, things got even worse. Hanks and his co-stars had to film in real zero gravity. NASA's Vomit Comet plane gave them 23 seconds of weightlessness per dive, and they did this hundreds of times. All 3 actors got sick. Hanks called it terrifying. Crew members ended up hospitalized, but the zero-gravity scenes looked perfect. By the time Saving Private Ryan started filming in 1997, Hanks was already used to pain. But nothing prepared him for that. For 4 straight weeks, he fired 1-200 blank rounds a day during the Omaha beach scenes. There were over 1,000 fake corpses, gallons of fake blood, and real amputees playing wounded soldiers. The sound design mimicked real shell shock, and Spielberg didn't let the cast see the full scope of the battle beforehand. That way, their reactions stayed raw. Hanks later said the experience gave him real PTSD symptoms. He had nightmares and became jumpy around loud noises. For Castaway, released in 2000, he lost 55 pounds in 4 months, dropping from 225 to 170. The film halted production for an entire year, just so Hanks could physically transform. His diet cut out sugar and carbs completely. He did 2 hours of cardio 6 days a week. The weight change was so extreme that it pushed his body into diabetes. He said he would never do it again. That role wasn't just about survival on screen, it mirrored what he was going through off-screen too. And in 2006, during the Da Vinci Code press tour, Hanks was hit with something worse than any film role. His son Chet admitted he'd been addicted to cocaine since he was 16. He was 24 at the time, and Hanks was already in the public eye. Chet went public on Instagram, revealing he'd gone 60 days sober. Tom had staged several interventions and later said, "As a parent, you love your kids unconditionally." That family crisis hit during one of the busiest points of his career. In The Terminal, 2004, Hanks had to learn real Ukrainian lines for his role. But filming got complicated. Post-9/11 airport security made it nearly impossible to shoot in real terminals. So Spielberg built an entire fake airport from scratch inside a giant hangar. The film was based on a real man who lived in an airport for 18 years. While promoting Forrest Gump in 1994, Tom was so bored during interviews that he started writing a script. That script turned into That Thing You Do, and it became his directorial debut in 1996. The soundtrack reached number 21 on the Billboard 200, but behind the scenes, it wasn't easy. He fired the editor during production because of creative disagreements. The movie made $34.6 million on a $26 million budget. Not a smash hit, but it proved Hanks could write and direct too. Then came Angels and Demons in 2009. While filming a chase scene in Rome, he broke his shoulder. That delayed everything. The Vatican also banned the crew from filming in any of its churches. Hanks and director Ron Howard had to recreate entire churches on sound stages in Los Angeles. Despite all the setbacks, the movie made nearly $486 million worldwide. In Toy Story 3, the voice acting wasn't just cute, it was intense. Tom had to record Woody's lines alone, not knowing how the whole story would go. That final scene, when Andy gives away the toys, was so emotional that they had to record it several times. The film had a $200 million budget, and Pixar encouraged Hanks to improvise, which made Woody's final arc even stronger. In 2016, just as Sully was coming out, Hanks endorsed Hillary Clinton. He had already supported Obama in 2008, even making a video on MySpace. But this time, the backlash was stronger. Conservatives criticized him, especially since he was playing a real-life hero in theaters. He had also raised over $44 million to fight California's Proposition 8 back in 2008. Some fans turned against him, but he stayed committed to what he believed in. Captain Phillips in 2013 took him into even more intense territory. The Somali pirates weren't actors. They were real Somali immigrants found through auditions in Minneapolis. The lifeboat where Hanks was held hostage was rebuilt from the real one, with the production team visiting a Navy museum to get every detail right. The tension between Hanks and the non-actors wasn't scripted. It was real. The language barrier and tight space created raw fear that bled into every scene. And finally, in Bridge of Spies, Spielberg cast Hanks again as a Cold War lawyer. What Hanks didn't know was that Gregory Peck had tried to make this movie back in the 1960s, but it got shelved after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Hanks met with the real James Donovan's family to understand the man he was portraying. He improvised many lines with Spielberg's blessing. That $40 million film made $165 million and won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Then came The Post in 2017. He played Ben Bradley opposite Meryl Streep. The film was shot in just 2 months, and it focused on the Pentagon Papers leak. Hanks tried to balance the real Bradley with the version seen in All the President's Men. He called Bradley a pirate, a fighter for truth. That film earned $179 million and was named the best film of the year by the National Board of Review. Tom Hanks was just 22 when he met Susan Dillingham at California State University in the mid-1970s. She was 4 years older and later changed her name to Samantha Lewis. They fell in love quickly and got married in 1978. Together, they had 2 children, Colin and Elizabeth Ann. But by 1984, things started to fall apart. That was the year Tom met Rita Wilson while filming Volunteers. Their connection was strong, and soon it turned into something more. He was still married, and Rita was engaged to someone else. But by 1985, the affair was no longer a secret. Samantha and Tom's marriage broke down, and the divorce turned bitter. In one painful moment, Tom arrived at his children's school for pickup, only to find they weren't there. His daughter Elizabeth wrote in her 2025 memoir that they had already been gone for 2 weeks. Their mother had quietly moved them to Sacramento without telling him. It crushed him. The affair with Rita didn't fade away. They married in 1988, just a year after his divorce was finalized. Rita later said she didn't know what love truly was until she met Tom. The public didn't take it lightly. Many called Rita a homewrecker. Tom admitted that his infidelity was the main reason his first marriage failed. That relationship began in secrecy, lasted around 3 years before he left his family, and turned into a lifelong marriage. Together, they converted to Greek Orthodox Christianity and tried to start fresh, but the past never completely disappeared. In 2013, Tom shared something very personal on The Late Show with David Letterman. He said that at age 57, after dealing with high blood sugar since he was 36, he had finally been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Doctors believed that his extreme weight changes for movie roles played a big part. He gained 30 pounds for A League of Their Own, lost over 50 pounds for Castaway, and put weight back on for Cloud Atlas in 2012. He told his doctor he'd rather have diabetes than try to get back to his high school weight. He accepted it, but things got harder. On March 11, 2020, while filming the Elvis biopic in Australia, both Tom and Rita tested positive for COVID-19. They were 63 at the time. They were among the first major celebrities to catch the virus. Their symptoms started with body aches and fatigue. They were hospitalized in Queensland for 14 days. Rita had high fevers, nausea, and lost her sense of taste and smell. Tom felt weak and tired. Even after leaving the hospital, he couldn't get back to his normal strength. He shared that just doing laundry or the dishes made him so tired he'd have to nap. His COVID symptoms lingered for a long time, and with his diabetes, it became even more serious. In 2015, another storm hit the family when Tom's son, Chet, posted a video online. He admitted he had a serious cocaine addiction. He said he had sold and used so much of it that his nose became clogged, and he even smoked crack. He stayed in a wilderness rehab program in Utah for nearly 6 months. Tom publicly supported him through it. Chet said being famous just because his dad was famous gave him deep contempt. He felt pressure to be someone he wasn't, and didn't think he deserved any recognition. It nearly broke him. Then, in 2014, Tom's privacy was invaded during the Sony Pictures hack. Hackers leaked personal emails and details from multiple celebrities. In Tom's case, they found out he used Johnny Madrid as a fake hotel check-in name. But what shocked fans was the discovery of his secret obsession with vintage typewriters. He owned over 100 of them. It was a harmless quirk, but it was something he never intended to share publicly. The leak also exposed Hollywood salaries and sensitive communications, forcing Tom to change his security habits permanently. Tom has also struggled with imposter syndrome, even after decades of success. During the filming of Forrest Gump in 1994, he felt nervous and unsure of himself. Director Robert Zemeckis had to tell him to stop pushing so hard. That insecurity stayed with him. He later admitted that on day 2 of every movie shoot, he still doubts whether he deserves the role. It got worse while filming Road to Perdition with Paul Newman. Tom couldn't believe he was sharing scenes with someone he viewed as a legend. Over time, he started therapy to help him understand these feelings. He said it helped him accept that, even though he felt like a fraud sometimes, he wasn't. In 2023, and again in 2024, AI-generated scams started using Tom's face and voice in fake ads promoting miracle diabetes cures and dental treatments. He spoke out strongly, warning people that he had nothing to do with them and that these ads were fake and dangerous. He explained that he only works with licensed doctors and never endorses unproven treatments. It became a major concern because scammers were using his real health condition to trick people. Despite everything, Tom kept pushing forward. In July 2025, at age 69, he said he felt better than he did in his 30s. Back then, he said his metabolism crashed, and gravity started tearing him down. Now, he exercises regularly and eats properly. He joked that his 30s were full of pressure and stress, and now he finally has time to focus on his health. Some noticed changes in his hair and voice, wondering if he had done anything to reverse aging, especially since his film Here used AI to make him look much younger. That film was meant to be a big reunion between Tom, Robin Wright, and director Robert Zemeckis. It was filmed in a unique way using a single camera angle and showing decades of family life through time windows. But even with all the technology and nostalgia, the movie failed to connect. It made only $15.8 million globally and received mostly negative reviews after its release on November 1st, 2024. Back in 2022, Tom had also received harsh criticism for his role in Elvis, where he played Colonel Tom Parker. Critics said his accent was weird, and the prosthetics made him unrecognizable. Some even called it the worst performance of his career. It was tough to hear because Tom was always known for his natural acting style, and this felt too fake for many fans. The public reaction was unexpectedly harsh for someone who had been beloved for so long. In 2017, Tom's production company, Playtone, backed the film The Circle, a thriller about tech surveillance. It starred Emma Watson and Tom himself. The movie only made $20.5 million in the US on an $18 million budget. It got destroyed by critics, scoring just 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. People found it ironic that Tom played a tech mogul warning about digital privacy while also doing ads for tech companies like Apple. But not all was bad. In May 2023, Tom released his debut novel called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece. It was a 416-page story covering 80 years from 1947 to the present. about how a veteran's life turned into a modern superhero movie. Tom even created 3 comic books himself to go along with the story. The novel became a bestseller and reached #1 on multiple lists. Critics were divided. Some thought the story was slow, like scattered backstories tied together. Others said it was a raw and honest look at Hollywood from someone who lived it. Either way, it proved Tom wasn't just an actor. He was also a writer, willing to share a different side of himself.